The content you're about to enjoy comes from the archives of The Best You. We're devoted to the very best in personal development. With a magazine and resources dedicated to inspiring and changing people's lives, at The Best You, we work with the world's leading writers and trainers on the evolution of the self, and people whose journeys have been affected by their work and words. For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.
Man who brought bulletproof coffee to the planet and helps you biohack your brain. Let's hear it for Dave Asprey.
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks, Lynn. Hey. So happy to be here for you guys. And thanks for watching my cool video. I figured I could tell the story a little faster than I could, but I do have to tell you a couple things. I'm going to give you a lot of information about how you can have more energy, more willpower, things like that. And it's probably not via the mechanisms you might expect. This is actually my fat picture. It's from Entrepreneur magazine when I was 23. I sold the first thing ever sold over the internet before we had a name for e-commerce. It was a t-shirt that said caffeine, my drug of choice. I sold it to 14 countries out of my dorm room, and that's how I looked. And I started, a few years later, biohacking a little bit. And what you do when you're biohacking, it's the art and science of changing the environment around you and inside of you so that you have full control of your own biology. Like, I want to have lots of energy because my brain is not working very well. And you measure things. So what I measured here was pleats in my pants. And I tested 1 pleat, 2 pleats, and 3 pleats, and still no dates. So I can tell you, pleats are not an effective biohack if you weigh 300 pounds the way I used to. So you guys can just skip that one altogether. But I wasn't feeling so good, even though when that picture was taken, I made $6 million when I was 26 years old. It was awesome. I lost that when I was 28, which was not awesome. So I've been working for a paycheck, but I had a brief period where I could invest in my own biology with reckless abandon, and I did. One of the things I did is I went to an anti-aging doctor, because I said, well, let's see. I've had arthritis in my knee since I was 14. I'm fat, I'm pre-diabetic, and my brain isn't working very well. So here's what they told me. This is physician handwriting. Like, oh, good news, Dave. You're not 30, but you're probably going to die like you're old. Like, that's not cool. Increased risk for a stroke and heart attack. So I went on and I said, all right, I got to do something about this because this hour and a half a day of exercise, 6 days a week, low fat, low calorie diet, it actually didn't make me thinner. It made me tired and hungry. So I injected radioactive sugar into my arm. You guys have all done this, right? All right. Well, this is with Dr. Daniel Amen. When he first came out with his first book, he's one of America's most respected brain doctors now 20 years later. And what this sugar does is it goes to your brain and it shows you what parts are actually using energy and which parts aren't. And the interesting thing is that they said, I'm an interesting referral. Okay, that's not what you want your brain doctor to say. You want them to say, nice work, come back in 10 years. Here's the thing, though. When this was taken, I was getting my MBA at Wharton, which is a good school, and I was working full-time at a startup. So I had a fried brain, and I was succeeding in my career and at school. The problem was that I felt like I had the accelerator pressed all the way to the floor, and I was slowing down. I'm like, I got nothing left here. I don't know what to do. And I was feeling kind of desperate about it, and frankly, let's just say I wasn't at the top of my class at Wharton. And this explained why. And what I learned from this is that I didn't have a moral problem. I didn't have just a lack of trying or a lack of willpower. I actually had a hardware problem. I'm a computer hacker. I know how to hack hardware problems. So this is something that I got this because now it took it away from just being a weakness, an inborn thing, to something that's editable. So I tried a lot of stuff. I became an advanced yoga practitioner, went down to Peru and did ayahuasca with a shaman 20 years ago, way before it was cool. When I went there, they said, Senor, you're white. And you're going to throw up. Why would you do this? That's only for like jungle shamans. And I said, no, I really want to do this. So they hooked me up and I met a guy with a carved jaguar and did one of those things that really does change the way you think. I decided to learn meditation from the masters in Tibet. So I went to Mount Kailash, which is the headwaters for the Indus and Ganges rivers, and considered like the Mount Olympus of Hinduism and Buddhism. And 18,000 feet elevation, you kind of feel like you're dying, sort of because you are. It was 10 degrees below zero. I was feeling pretty crappy. And I met these ladies. And the one behind me gave me a bowl of yak butter tea. And I drank it. And 5 minutes later, I'm like, I feel better than I have in a long time. What just happened? It was a very noticeable aha moment because I'd cultivated the practice of asking myself, how am I doing right now? What's my energy level? Am I remembering everything I want to remember? Am I struggling to remember? What was I going to say? What was that last word? Things like that. And when I came back to Silicon Valley, I put some butter in some tea, and it tasted like crap. I said, all right, that was a fail. So I went to the tea store, and I spent $500 on all these different aged teas, and it tasted better, but it still didn't work. So then I tried 25 different butters and found out grass-fed butter worked, and normal butter didn't. Couldn't tell you why. And then I added in oil from this anti-aging nonprofit research group that at the time I was already president of it. It's a group that's been doing research for more than 25 years, 4 minutes from Google's headquarters about how we can live longer. And I'd learned from all these experts there. And I said, what if I combine these? And after, a few hundred, maybe 1,000 different iterations, I'm like, all right, I drink this and I feel like a great golden god. Maybe I should tell someone about it. And I started the Bulletproof blog with this idea. I already have a job. I was a VP at a big tech company. I have 2 young kids. Starting a company is a really bad idea. So I'll start a blog for myself when I was 20. Because if someone had told me all this stuff when I was 20, I wouldn't have had to spend $1 million upgrading my biology. And the amount of struggle and effort in my life would have been far lower than it has been. So I wrote it thinking maybe 5 people will read it. If it does for them what this knowledge has done for me, I get some karma points. And it turns out a few more than 5 people are interested. And Bulletproof reaches more than 10 million people a month now. The podcast is Webby Award winning, about 75 million downloads now, and #1 ranked on iTunes, depending on which second you look at it, but it's a pretty good one, and stuff like that. And I went from the guy on the left to the guy on the right. And after I boil all that stuff down, like, how did this happen? Well, it comes down to these little guys. These are mitochondria. If you remember your 7th grade biology, which you probably don't because I didn't really, these are organelles. Well, what does that even mean? It means it's part of your cells. But that's not really the truth. The truth is that 2 billion years ago, there were some cells that we like to think are us. They were floating around in the ocean. And these cells, we think they were a parasite, by the way. No one's really sure what kind of cell is us. But we harnessed these bacteria to become our mobile power plants. And that was the creation of cells that could run without being rooted into the ground. Plants did something similar. They have chloroplasts instead of mitochondria. But the real story is not that we harnessed them. It's that 2 billion years ago, there were some cells floating around in the ocean, and there was this active bacterial colony, and they're like, hey, that looks like a mobile petri dish. I'm just going to move right in and take over and never let go. So what's happening now? We have a quadrillion mitochondria inside our bodies, way more than there are cells in your body, way more than there are even bacteria in your gut. And they're considered to be part of your cells, but they don't know it. They're still bacteria. That means they run the operating system that every life form on Earth, whether it's a plant or an animal, runs. And it's only 3 things. Did I mention I'm a computer hacker? I just think about this like a computer guy. So here's the algorithm for staying alive. It's really complex. Number 1. Run away from, kill, or hide from scary things. Why? Because if something eats you, it's game over. Okay. Number 2, eat everything. Why? Because if you starve, it's game over. Number 3, have sex with everything else. Because if the species doesn't reproduce, it's game over. Now, has anyone here ever done something you're ashamed of that didn't come from one of those 3 bacterial behaviors? Yeah, that was her in the back. So, what this means is that throughout your body, you've got a distributed system of these things. They make energy for you. They take food and air and light, combine them in certain ways to make the energy that gives you willpower, makes your heart beat, makes thoughts happen, makes hormones form. Everything that you do, think, feel comes from these guys. They don't just make the energy, though. They also sense the environment around you. That means that they are paying attention to everything that you don't see. They see them first, And they only care about keeping your petri dish alive, which means they get to think and act before you get to think and act, which really kind of sucks. Now you might be saying, that's kind of extreme. But if you don't believe me, you ever lean on a hot stove accidentally? You pull your hand away, go, good thing I moved my hand away? Liar. You didn't move your hand. You didn't go, that's really hot. I think I should move my hand. I kind of smell bacon. Oh no, that's me. This has never happened. So what is it that moved your hand? It was a distributed network of mitochondria throughout your body that sensed the heat, created local alarm system through something called substance P, which then flows into your neurons, which then flow up into your head. But there's a lot of stuff that your neurons do before you get to pay attention. This means that your body is aware of the world around you before you are. And this is why you make all those bad decisions. So first thing you can do that'll make you perform better is, it's actually not your fault. Because it was those little bastards that did it. They're a separate consciousness inside of you. The problem with being a bacteria is that you have no room for a brain. You're stupid. You only follow these 3 rules and a 4th rule that we'll get to later. You follow those, but if you follow those millions of times a second, times a quadrillion of those things, what comes out of that is a very complex behavior. And we know now that many of the most complex forms we see in nature are simple rules repeated almost infinite numbers of times. So complexity comes out of simple rules repeated. The complexity that is basically your ego, your keeping the hardware alive, comes from these guys. The good news is, since they're so stupid, even though they're really fast, they're eminently hackable. Because while they do listen to you a little bit, they mostly listen to the environment around you, and that's the mechanism we use to hack them. If they're not working well, you're going to get some brain weaknesses. And when I say they're not working well, this is a big problem because 48% of people under age 40 have early onset mitochondrial dysfunction. What that means, you take a unit of air, unit of food, combine them, and you don't get a unit of energy. You get less than a unit of energy. The extra energy goes into muffin top, inflammation, and you can also get muffin top in your brain. The problem, though, is that everyone over age 40 has mitochondrial dysfunction. We just don't call it early onset. We call it aging. Now, in my belief system, it's still early onset mitochondrial dysfunction, even if you're over 40. I'm planning to live to at least 180, and that's not a joke. I'm actually going to do this, or die trying. I'm good either way. If you have these going on in your brain, your mitochondria aren't working well. You forget things. Why did I open the refrigerator again? What was I going to buy? Where was I going? This happens surprisingly often. If you don't believe me, drink 2 6-packs of beer, wake up tomorrow morning. That kind of feeling, that's an amplified version, that hangover feeling of what happens when your mitochondria don't work. Cravings. If I don't eat something, I'm going to die. Inability to focus. I wanted to pay attention, but I didn't. And it wasn't because I was weak. It's because I told my brain to do it. I didn't have the energy to do it. Or just low energy. You can't get out of bed. You wanted to go exercise, but you didn't. This happens all the time. And worst of all, moodiness and anger. So the number of times that you say things you regret to people you care about, you don't really know why. Quite often, it's because if you'd had more energy, you would have had the power it takes, the mental power, to catch the signal coming from your mitochondrial network and say, you know what? I'm actually not going to do that this time. So this is some powerful stuff. It means your willpower is a biological thing. It's not inherent in you. It's not a question of how strong are you, how much do you want something. It's just biology. And making decisions takes away your willpower. One of my favorite studies out there is from Israel. And they looked at people in prison to see what gets you out of prison with the parole board. Is it your education? Is it your race, your gender, what crime you committed, how old you are, all these variables. Number one variable, the time of your meeting with the parole board. If you have your meeting first thing in the morning, you've got an 80% chance of getting out of prison. They're just going to let you go because the parole board is fresh. They haven't made a lot of decisions. But if you have the meeting around 4:30 in the afternoon, you have an 80% chance of staying in because they already made enough decisions. They ran out. Decisions take energy. And there was a little peak right after lunch. After the parole board had lunch, if you had a meeting right after that, before the post-lunch nap time set in, you were also more likely to get out. So it turns out the biology of people making decisions really matters.
For complimentary resources from my book, my complimentary e-course, The Power of the Question, or recommended reads, go to www.thequestion/resources. For more information on my coaching or mentoring, go to www.bernardo-moya.com.
You also have a limited capacity for decisions. If you make too many of them, you just run out. You've got to use extra energy to make a decision. That energy, that can go into making your body younger, stronger, towards doing something you want to do, or towards making a decision. You've got to use extra electrons to do it. And over time, that ability drops. And here's a decision that's costing you a huge amount. And the reason that Bulletproof coffee is popular, the reason the Bulletproof diet has sold like 500,000 copies at this point, is that when someone sets a cookie in front of you, the cookie's going to talk to you, and it's going to say, "Eat me." And you're going to say, "No." That was decision number one. And then just like my kids when they were 2, about a half a second later, it's going to say, "Eat me." And you're going to say, "No." And again, "Eat me." "No." And about 400 or 500 decisions later, you're going to say, "Fine, I'll just eat half." Right? We've all done that. I know when I weighed 300 pounds, this was a very common thing. It wasn't for a lack of desire. I just ran out of willpower. Obese people are actually willpower athletes because they practice this more than other people because they have more cravings because their mitochondria aren't working as well. So what if, of those 3 main behaviors, what if you could just turn off hunger? So someone puts a cookie in front of you and it has no voice. You don't have to say no because you don't care about the cookie anymore because you have enough energy. That's why we make the brain octane oil. That's why the whole system of the Bulletproof diet is there. And if you want to get the roadmap for that, which is basically the entire book on a 1-page infographic for free, it's on the Bulletproof website. Bulletproof.com, search for roadmap, and it's on there. And you can print that out, put it on your fridge, it'll tell you how to do all that stuff. You don't have to buy anything. The reason I think this matters is the 4th bacterial behavior. I mentioned those 3 things. Basically fear, feed, and the other F word that we all do. And there's the 4th one is friends. What do bacteria do? They make yogurt. They make kombucha. They cooperate. And we're wired to do the same thing, to make friends, to support our community, to specialize in what we do, and actually be nice to each other. But if those first 3 things aren't happening, we don't do it. And if we can just solve the food thing, it gives you enough willpower to work on the fear thing. You might want to meditate or take some deep breaths or something like that. I talk about that a lot on the radio show. And to solve the other problem, you have no love in your life, maybe you have more energy, you could actually put it into being a good partner for someone. These things all go together, but without energy, you can't do any of the 3. And when you get those at least somewhat in alignment, your natural inclination as a human being is to support other humans and be nice to them. That's why food matters so much. That's why I started there, but that's not why I've ended there. I run a neuroscience company, done a bunch of other things like this that are around how do we make ourselves better, stronger human beings who are more resilient, nicer now, and living a lot longer. So how do you increase your willpower? You change your environment. Make the mitochondria happy and give them more energy. You get rid of toxins. There are a huge number of toxins that stop your mitochondria from making energy. And toxins are thrown about all the time, but there are real toxins that are made by man that inhibit mitochondrial function. Some of them are pharmaceutical drugs. Some of them are pesticides. But there are actually more of these made by Mother Nature. What's the ancient enemy of bacteria? Isn't that where antibiotics come from? They come from mold, right? The first antibiotic came from mold on cantaloupe. And they noticed, oh, look, the mold kills the bacteria. You take antibiotics, they actually harm your bacteria, your mitochondria. And mold in your house, mold in your environment is one of those things that makes a huge amount of toxin, even mold in your food, which is a serious problem in our food supply right now. It doesn't kill you right now. It just takes away a little bit of your ability to make energy and causes systemic problems. My last book, Headstrong, hit the New York Times science bestseller list between the books Sapiens and Homo Deus and some other really cool books like The Secret Life of Trees. It was all about how do you hack the mitochondria in your head. That has all the details I'm talking about today. But toxins are really important. You stabilize your energy production by eating stuff that keeps you from having a blood sugar crash or gives you an alternate fuel source. And you stop wasting willpower by thinking about cookies and by doing stuff that isn't very useful for your life. So I mentioned earlier it's not your fault, except it is. It's your fault because you're in control of this stuff, you just didn't know it. So with that ability to have control, you have responsibility. So if your head is doing things you don't like it to do, you have a mean voice in there, maybe it's afraid somebody's going to eat it. Maybe it's hungry, and maybe it needs to get some. But you need to figure that out, and you need to do whatever it's going to take. So here's my artist rendition of a mitochondria. I drew that myself. I think I should get bonus points for not being an artist. Here's the universe of stuff that your cells listen to. Number one is light. You notice my cool glasses. I'm actually in training with Bono to be a rock star. What these do, these block half the blue light because 93% of the light the average person is exposed to is indoor light that doesn't match the spectrum of the sun. Remember that story about 2 billion years ago? Mitochondria, they're used to getting a signal from the sun that tells them what time of day it is. 5% of the cells in your eye collect light that you never see. It bypasses your optic nerve and goes into the middle of your brain, called the SCN, and that controls the timing system for your entire body. And if you get LED light and fluorescent light indoors, what happens is it disrupts your timing signal. So all these mitochondria everywhere that are trying to make energy all at the same time and then go to sleep and do rest and recovery cycles at night, you stare at your phone before bed, you turn on those bright LED lights in your kitchen and bathroom, they think it's daytime again and they wake up. So now you have a mismatch in energy production and you get, over time, blood sugar dysregulation and tons of chronic diseases, including cancer, is tied to bright light exposure. Even things like depression happen when people sleep with small amounts of light on in their bedrooms. Like the amount of light that comes in from a street light going behind curtains is enough to increase depression risk by 63% in a study of 900 people. So I hate to tell you, you're as light sensitive as a plant is, and I'm controlling the light coming to my eyes right now because during the day you need some blue light, but not all. This company, TrueDark, also does glasses for sleep. You'll see a lot of the Bulletproof booth out there when you come by to get some coffee. That a lot of them are wearing these as well. I give these to all the employees at Bulletproof because you have more energy at the end of the day when you don't take junk light in, just like you have more energy if you don't eat junk food during the day. It matters. Electromagnetic frequencies. Now, I'd love to stand up here and tell you I have a tinfoil hat on. I'm wearing aluminum foil underwear, and we live in a blue-lit, microwaved world, and we're all going to die. The bottom line, though, is that cell phones are kind of interesting and useful. So you have these things on your mitochondrial membrane called voltage-gated calcium channels. They're 17 million times more sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies than other parts of your cells. When they open up because of an EMF, they allow calcium to come in, which causes expansion of the cell, which we call inflammation, and a reduction in mitochondrial function. That's bad. My first book was about pregnancy, and in that book, don't keep your phone near your junk. So I moved my phone down here. See my sexy biohacker pants? All right, it's away from my junk. But when I did my high-resolution bone density scan of my body, where I keep my phone here, there's 10% less bone density on my dominant leg than there should be over here. Why? Because that's where my phone always is. So now I actually do have a metal patch sewn behind my pocket. So I'm not wearing aluminum foil underwear, but I'm getting close. That said, I turn off my Wi-Fi at night, and I set my cell phone on the desk in front of me. It's not that hard. I'm not fearful of these things. If I can do less things that make me weak, I'm going to live longer. It just seems like an obvious move. So I would suggest pay attention to EMFs. Don't sleep on a Wi-Fi router. It's a bad idea. If it's under your desk, move it. It's not that hard. Better yet, turn it off and get this thing called Ethernet. You stick it in a computer. It's easy. Timing matters. Turns out when you eat, makes a huge difference for the timing system in your body. When you exercise, even when you sleep. Would you believe that when we lived in tribes of 150 people, we evolved to specialize and support each other, like our mitochondria wanted us to keep our petri dishes alive? 15% of us stay up late. We're the night watch. About 15% of us never sleep very well. We're the backup alarm. 15% of people wake up real early in the morning, all bouncy and full of energy. They're called the bad people. And the rest of us are around during the day like normal people. If you know which of those chronotypes you are, then if you eat and sleep and function according to the natural rhythms of your body, you will live longer and you'll like your life. I became an early riser. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day for 2 years because it was supposed to make me a better person. It actually just made me a tired person. I'm like, screw that noise. It turns out I'm what's called a wolf. You can go to the Power of When quiz. This is my friend Michael Bruce did this work, and it's in both my books because the mitochondria listen to the time of day. They just need to know what time it is. They want you to do stuff. You better listen. Temperature also matters. If you sleep in a place that's too hot, your mitochondria listen. But I do weird things like Bulletproof Labs here in LA and Santa Monica. We opened this $1 million facility, And it's got all this different stuff that sends a signal into your mitochondria stronger than Mother Nature could give you so that they will change and do what you want them to do. And I have this replicated at my house on Vancouver Island, which is on an organic farm. So what you do is you stand in air that's been chilled by liquid nitrogen to 260 degrees below zero. It's actually less painful than standing in a cold shower. It's not as bad as it sounds. But here's what's going on with the mitochondria. Their job is to make heat, first step of doing all the things they do. And the ones who can't turn heat on fast enough, they see this cold air and go, oh man, I guess I better get out of the way. So you basically tell the weak mitochondria, only the strong survive. And you kill the weak little bastards. And they get replaced by young, strong ones, and then you have more energy. That's why you can do cryotherapy, or you can just take a shower, nice hot shower, in the shower, turn it to cold all the way, and let it hit you right in the face and chest where you have the most temperature sensors. And after 8 seconds, you'll swear and say, Dave Asprey is a total jerk. But if you do that every day, after about 4 days, you'll suddenly be like, you know what? I actually feel great. And the amount of time you can do it goes up, and you just feel really good, and your skin starts to look better, and you have more energy. That's because you got the old ones that are not functioning very well out of the way. They realize if I can't bring it, I'm going to bring in someone who can bring it, which is really cool. Even things like gravity, things like high-impact exercise, you're not going to like that if you do that for a long time. Ask any of my friends over 60. But they're listening to gravity, which means vibration also matters. You can stand on the Bulletproof Vibe at the exhibit out there, and you actually feel a difference. This is something I have at my desk at home. So every now and then I get off my desk, I stand there and vibrate 30 times a second, the same frequency that NASA uses to make astronauts recover. Why? Because my mitochondria are listening to gravity. Pressure, get a massage. Air pressure, things like that can make a difference. If you get a weird headache when a storm is coming, get brain fog, brain tiredness, that's because they're listening to the air pressure, not you. But it's a variable you can control. You're in a building with one of those low pressure hums that does that stuff, that makes you tired. It makes you tired because it takes their energy. The food you eat, there's a whole book about that. I told you a bunch of other stuff about it. I'll talk about that a bit more. But that matters a lot because that's their primary fuel source. We also have water and air are the other two things. Scientists like to say, let's not talk about water, even though something like 70% of what's in your body is water. Bulletproof has sponsored research at the University of Washington around water and core biology. It turns out there is something called exclusion zone water. And the reason, or one of the reasons your cells make heat, is to change water so that that water can then be used to fold proteins in the body and to make energy in the form of something called ATP. So if you're drinking tap water, you're drinking dirty water, you're probably doing it wrong. So the quality of all these things matter. Is any of these going to kill you if you get it wrong? Not right now. But the idea is, get some of these so they're more in line with your goals, and you'll feel a lot more energy. It's actually a really powerful thing to do. I already talked about light. Junk light, same as junk food. And the light that you want, incandescent light, halogen light, or sunlight, if you were to do something to make yourself healthier, it's a core recommendation from Headstrong, the last book. In the morning, take off your glasses, take out your contacts, unless you're going to walk in front of traffic without them, and go for a walk. 20 minutes. A 20-minute walk is enough exercise to stimulate new mitochondria, and getting sunlight on your skin and in your eyes tells all these cells in your body, hey, it's morning. Because if you just wake up like normal, turn on the bathroom lights, brush your teeth, and rush off to work, you don't get that light signal. It's as important to have bright light in the morning as it is to have absolute darkness at night. I mentioned the TrueDark light blocking glasses that I use. They made a huge difference. And at night, my house looks like a submarine because I have red LED lights. Turns out your mitochondria are blind to red light. They can't see it, but you can. So you can read under a red light all you want, and your body thinks it's pitch black and midnight. You're totally hacking it, and it just looks like you might work in a house of ill repute, but that's all right. Changing your temperature. Infrared saunas absolutely work. In fact, saunas work altogether. You can do a cold plunge. I've got one of those at home where you get cold water, or just do the cold shower I talked about. Cryotherapy. And when it comes to reducing cravings, huge things you can do. Number one is you need to eat fat for fuel. Something called ketones set you free. How many of you have been on a ketogenic diet? Roughly a third. How many of you are in ketosis right now? 1, 2, about 6 people. Here's the deal. A lot of people try it. No one does ketosis on a regular basis. It's extremely rare unless you have epilepsy or advanced cancer, in which case you're kind of going to do it. So what's the hack for that? Well, you can be on a low but not no carb diet, and you can use brain octane oil, which is in Bulletproof coffee. I actually poured some on the sushi I had for lunch, and it raises ketones just enough. And here's why ketones set you free, because they turn off cravings. There's a hormone that causes you to be hungry and have cravings. It's called ghrelin. And if you can raise your ketones to way less than fasting for 4 days and living on only bacon will do for you, you can actually get your ghrelin levels to the point where your cravings are gone. And you can do that with about a tablespoon of that oil, or you can fast for a couple days or be on a very strict low-carb diet. The other hormone is sponsored by Calvin Klein. Not really, but it's called CCK. It kind of looks like it is. CCK is the fullness hormone. Same thing, mild levels of ketones in the body turn on the fullness hormone. And when you get this right, the cookie stops talking to you. And that is absolutely liberating. So I am a former 300-pound guy who has abs covered in stretch marks, I might add, but I don't have cravings. The cookie has no power over me. I just don't want it. If you offered me something really delicious right now, I'd be like, sorry, I ate a few hours ago. Like, I'm not ready for more food. And that is a totally different thing than I ever experienced when I was heavy. And you've got to eat some polyphenols. Polyphenols are colored compounds from plants. And you ever hear of spice roots, spice trading roots? When I was in 7th grade, I asked my teacher, why did people die freezing to death going over these mountain passes to bring yaks with spices? Why do spices matter very much? And she said, well, they had no refrigerators and the meat was spoiling, so they would put spices on the meat. That's what we call a BS answer. The real answer is that we don't make energy in our cells without these colored compounds from plants. They're very important for us, and if you live in a place without enough of them, you need to get them. So the original things, even like vanilla that we use, oregano, turmeric, all these things are spices that contribute these colored compounds. Number one source of polyphenols in the American diet is coffee, and the other rich foods are tea, chocolate, and I'd like to tell you red wine is a great choice, but it's lower in polyphenols than those other things, and it has some other things in it you probably don't want to take regularly. But herbs and spices are very, very high in these, and plants themselves are not very high in them, because if you're going to eat your bowl of kale, well, you'll get some polyphenols, but not very much compared to the volume of food you have to eat. I get 5 grams of polyphenols a day, and I can see the difference when I look at the composition of my gut microbiome, because these polyphenols are eaten by the bacteria in your gut, and they're used as signaling molecules in your skin. So if you're eating a plate full of vegetables covered in healthy, undamaged fats, including saturated fat, and a moderate amount of protein, you're going to feel and perform very different than you would if you were eating a huge plate of protein on one of those high-protein diets that doesn't work over time and causes inflammation, or if you're on a raw vegan diet like I used to be. I was a raw vegan for almost a year until my teeth started to break, and I got thyroid conditions. But yeah, it looks good at first. Anyway, polyphenols matter, and you should start fasting. Fasting doesn't have to be that bad. You basically skip breakfast. It's easy. If you need to, you can have Bulletproof coffee, only fat, no protein, no sugar whatsoever, and then don't have lunch until 2 o'clock. Do that even 2 or 3 times a week. It's not something that's going to be nearly as painful as you think it's going to be, but you're going to like your life when you do that for a variety of reasons.
For more information on collaborating, partnering, sponsoring, supporting, or speaking at any of our events, or finding out more about our legacy clubs, go to www.thebestyou.co. If you're interested in finding out more about the amazing content we have, please go to www.thebestyou.online and get your 14-day free trial now.
And I talked about air already. I talked about mold in the air as being really, really important. Mold matters. But there's something else that matters. You want to have a young brain that works really well? There's something called BDNF, brain-derived nootropic factor. This is really high when you're a baby, and it causes you to be able to form new neurons in the brain. And we used to think we couldn't do this as adults, but it turns out we can. Here's what makes you grow new neurons, what raises BDNF levels. Exercise, sleeping really well. Did I mention blocking out your room? That matters. Meditation, fasting, things we just talked about, they cause your brain to be able to learn like a young person. But there's some other things you can do. There are specific supplements documented to raise brain-derived nootropic factor. One of them that we decided to commercialize is called Neuromaster. It raises BDNF levels 4 times more than exercise. Maybe I'll exercise and I'll use a supplement because I'm totally willing to cheat. In a good way. You do brain training. Meditation really matters. And you can choose whatever kind you want. Me, I opened 40 Years of Zen. It's a neurofeedback facility, and I glue electrodes to my head. I spent 4 months of my life with the electrodes telling me what's going on in there. I don't have a voice in my head that says mean things to me anymore. It's kind of nice. And the idea there is, with a computer telling you how to meditate, you can probably do years of meditation in a few weeks or a few months, because instead of wondering if you're doing it right, you have a computer that tells you you're meditating wrong. Change it. So yes, hurry, meditate faster. You're supposed to laugh. Hurry variability. Costs $100 to get a sensor that clips on your ear and teaches you what it feels like to be in fight or flight mode and how to go out of it. Binaural beats. There's different kinds of sound technologies that can control your brain. And what about exercise? I got bad news for you. You're wasting your time. There's a return on investment for exercise. What if you could get more benefits in less time and you could free up some time to do other stuff that mattered more? You want to cause stress on your cells so they'll get stronger. Only the strong survive. 20-minute walk once a day. Big body of research that supports that. You can walk more if you want to, but you don't have to. The other thing is, once or twice a week for 15 minutes, you need to suffer. That means lifting heavy things. I don't mean little pink dumbbells. I mean with a trainer as heavy as your body will support, that whole thing about pressure and gravity. Or you need to sprint like a tiger's chasing you for about a minute, lay on your back and pant, do it again, do it 3 or 4 times. Don't worry, people will laugh at you, but it doesn't matter because you're faster than they are. And you do that twice a week, you will actually grow younger and newer and more mitochondria, and that makes your brain work better. But the ultimate biohack is plan time on your calendar. This is my son Alan and me in Hawaii, and you got to schedule time to do this stuff, because everything I just told you to do will not take priority over your next Facebook alert. We're wired that way. Those mitochondria know that there might be something dangerous on Facebook. So what do? You build it into your calendar, put a block in there, and ask someone else that you care about to hold you accountable for it. Because if you hold yourself accountable, your mitochondria are going to think about cookies and sex, because that's what they do. Now, this is something that I do every morning. And I borrowed this from the Dalai Lama with only a couple edits, so I'm not taking credit for it. But I want you guys to just hear these words. And it's, every day, think as you wake up, today I'm fortunate to be alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others. I am going to have kind thoughts towards others. I am not going to get angry or think badly about others. I am going to benefit others as much as I can. And the reason I do this is because you cannot think about that. You cannot have those feelings of gratitude and compassion and giving and be stuck in fight or flight mode. When you think about that and you feel that, your mitochondria stop paying attention to the stupid things and they start paying attention to you. It actually gets your energy in alignment. So cultivating a practice of gratitude, and I do this with my kids every night, it actually changes your biology. It changes your neurochemistry. It changes the way your cells make energy. And it takes you out of that fight or flight mode so your cells will do what they're supposed to, which is repair your systems, make you stronger, make you better, instead of making you worry about things that aren't really there. Gratitude is the key to do that. And to sort of close things up, the goal of life isn't to accumulate power, it's to radiate it. You can make money and you can put it in a bank account. You can have a collection of whatever the heck you collect. But power, you make it every second of your life and you've got to use it. And it's your moral obligation to make as much power as your body is capable of making and then use it for good. Now, there's 2 things I'm going to suggest you do. You can listen to the Bulletproof radio podcast, tons of 5-star reviews. It's won a Webby Award, which is the highest award you can get for that. 500 episodes with experts who talk about things like this, where I interview them twice a week. So when you're driving somewhere, listen to this. You're going to learn things. Go to bulletproof.com/iTunes. It'll take you right to the page to subscribe to it. And read these 2 books. There's thousands of studies and years of research that went into those. It takes about 4 hours each book. Highest ROI I can offer you on understanding how to get control of what's going on in your head and in your biology. And swing on by the booth, because we're going to have some really cool stuff for you there. Thank you, guys. There may be time for questions, but I don't have a clock that tells me how much more time I have. We have time for a couple? About 15 minutes? If you have a question, we've got 2 guys with mics.
Sure. Right off the top, by the way, I've been following your work, and it's awesome what you're doing. Thank you for that. So I think he's a great guy, isn't he? Give this guy another round of applause. At the top, you mentioned the test of mitochondria. You said there's a test that you can do. I've been, I'm doing Vial. I'm doing some testing right now for biohacking. What's the mitochondria test, and where do I get it?
There's a bunch of different mitochondrial tests that are just emerging on the market right now, and some of them will look at how well your mitochondria do when they're exposed to something like hydrogen peroxide. But the gold standard is basically done in a closed university lab where they're measuring your oxygen respiration to see how much oxygen your body is using during a set amount of work. And if you're using all the oxygen you're supposed to be using, you have 100% efficiency, and it goes down from there. They use that kind of university-grade study to do the research that I referenced in Headstrong about mitochondrial deficiency. I don't think you can get that study done yet. There isn't a consumer version of that that I've been able to find. I want to popularize like a standardized quality test of mitochondria. Right now, what they normally do is they just biopsy like apple core into your muscle. That's usually not very popular, so I don't think that one doesn't have legs. Next question.
What would you say about adding electrolyzed reduced water to everything where the water was smaller and also had the electric shock?
Adding electrolyte reduced water. I haven't looked specifically at the kind of, I'm going to guess it's kind of a marketing technology. You can have ionized or deionized water, and you can have alkaline water where they use electrodes to do that. And I'll tell you, I've had alkaline water makers, $1,000 stuff from Japan since the late 90s, and mostly what I got was tired and diarrhea from it. I wish I could tell you something better. There is a case for alkaline water for endurance athletes, or at a certain point during the day, there's a circadian acid-alkaline balance. But I can tell you that when you use electricity on water like that, you make what's called exclusions on water. And this is based on Dr. Gerald Pollack's work, who's been a guest on the radio show, the guy we sponsored at the University of Washington to fund his research, not on a specific substance, but research on what is water doing in our cells, because we tend to ignore that 70% of our bodies. So yes, you should use something that treats your water, but maybe alkaline water itself isn't a panacea for most people. But if it works for you, do it. But if it doesn't work for you and you get dizzy and tired and things like that, it's okay. Alkaline water is not there.
Yeah, hi. I know you mentioned that you have the metal blocking device in your super awesome biohacker pants there. What do you suggest for people that live in apartments where there's a Wi-Fi that is provided by the actual apartment? How do you hack that?
You guys aren't going to like this. If I lived, so I'm on a 30-acre farm in the middle of nowhere, so I don't have a problem with this. I just flip a switch and I can see no Wi-Fi, but that's highly unusual for most humans today. And if I lived in a high-density area, especially in an apartment where your bed might literally be 2 feet from someone else's Wi-Fi radio, you can't even tell, I would either use Wi-Fi blocking paint in my walls, or I would have what looks like mosquito netting over my bed, but it's actually EMF blocking stuff that's electrically grounded. That may sound alarmist, but look, I'm going to spend a third of my life asleep. I'd rather have my cells doing what they're supposed to do when I'm asleep, and I'm happy to have a funky-looking bedroom. I already have red lights in there. How much worse can it get? I think we had a question in the front up here. We have two in the front, but we got one there.
Hi, Dave. My name is Lynn, and I'm so excited to meet you here because I came to this conference because of you.
Oh, thank you.
I've been a Bulletproof supporter and fan for 3 years, and I print out the Bulletproof roadmap and give it to my family and friends.
Wow.
And I drink Bulletproof coffee every day. So I just want to say thank you.
And you're 87 years old, right?
You know what? I was telling my neighbor here that I plan and I believe that I will be 120 because you said babies born today, if they do everything right, can live to 120.
But that one's already in the bag. We all know how to do that. We already have evidence people can do that without all the advanced tech that's already here and is coming. So yeah, 120 at least.
Like I said, I believe that. And I've been listening to, I would say most of your interviews for the past 3 years, and I've been able to learn from the other people that you have interviewed. So mostly I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
And my question is, it is my dream to have an organic coconut farm, either in the Philippines or Hawaii, where my family is from, to supply for Bulletproof brain octane oil. So that is my question. How do I get there?
How do you get there? Well, it turns out, let's talk about farming for a minute. We have a problem. There's something called MCT oil, which I helped to popularize. The problem is that there's a lot of knockoff stuff out there, and there's 4 kinds of stuff that can legally be called MCT oil that's present in coconuts. So coconuts can legally say we're 52 to 60% MCT oil, but brain octane is about 5% of the oil found in coconuts. So it takes a lot of coconuts to do this. So most MCT oil you get doesn't have the stuff that gives you the ketone powers I talked about because it's MCT oil, and most of it comes from palm, not coconut. And the Bulletproof stuff is made in the US. It's made 100% from coconuts because palm trees are causing massive deforestation in Indonesia, and they're killing orangutans. So we went through the palm oil thing, which means it takes a lot to make brain octane, but to do a triple distillation process and to filter it and all that, it makes a difference. So the first thing is you got to have a good quality farm with proper soil and all that. And it's expensive to run a farm. It's hard to run small farms. 90% of small farmers today, and I am a small farmer, they have outside work to pay for things. So you finish your day job, you come home. We just got 2 pigs. You got to feed the pigs some slop. You got to feed the sheep. Our new baby sheep is called Blueberry. And she's on Instagram, by the way, Dave.Asprey. And it's a ridiculous amount of work. So if you want to do it, make sure you know what you're signing up for, and make sure you get enough acreage that you can actually make a living doing it, because it's very hard to be a small farmer. Where do I source my coconuts? I don't allow any palm in there, so we use a sustainable coconut instead of palm. All right, I have time for one more question. In the back, there we got a microphone.
Hey, Dave. So you're talking about the benefits of a daily gratitude practice and kind of that shifting us out of fight or flight. So shifting from sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system activity, and the idea that meditation, by de-stressing us, is probably doing similar things, heart rate variability training, doing similar things. So I wanted to get your perspective maybe on breath work or different breathing practices in accomplishing the same goal.
Breath work is incredibly important, and it's part of yoga. In fact, if you go back more than 100 years, most of yoga was pranayama, the breathing practice and the learning, and all those like crazy advanced poses we do are actually Swedish gymnastics combined with yoga. I'm not even joking. And that became what's known as American yoga. Breathing matters a lot. One of the guys who helped me see a lot of this was Stan Grof, the father of transpersonal psychology, who treated 3,000 patients with LSD in the 1960s as a licensed psychiatrist. And in Czechoslovakia back then, before it split, this was legal, and he had huge results in people. When it became illegal, he created something called holotropic breathing. And I've actually had the honor of interviewing Stan. He's in his 90s, and he led sessions at one of the Bulletproof conferences called Be Unlimited. It's a personal development event we put on for 150 people. And you do this really crazy deep breathing thing really, really fast, and you literally leave your body. Like it's more impactful than a lot of the hallucinogenic drugs you can take, but it's just breathing. That's how powerful breathing can be. I did Art of Living breathing exercises, which are done by something like 30 or 40 million people around the planet. It comes out of India. I did that every morning for 5 years. So breathing can really change things, because when you change your breathing, it changes your heart rate. When you change your heart rate, it changes the magnetic field around your heart. Guess what listens to magnetic fields in your body? Mitochondria. There you go. So you can actually send a signal to them, and if your heart's doing what it does during these breathing exercises, they know no tiger is about to eat you. Because if a tiger was about to eat you, your heart would be doing something different. So you can drive calmness and awareness throughout the body. So if you don't have a breathing practice of some sort or another, literally, I can teach you guys right now a quick breath. It's what the special forces use to de-stress. And it's what I use with my kids to teach them to go to sleep if they have a hard time going to sleep at night. And it's called a box breath. And all you do is breathe out. You're going to breathe in for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're going to hold for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're going to slowly breathe out for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now hold empty for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5. You do that 5 or 6 times. And what's going on there, especially the holding empty, your cells are going to be freaking out, going, there's no oxygen, we're going to die. It turns out after you teach them to do that for a little while, they're like, oh, sorry, I guess I was wrong. And your overall fight or flight drops from doing that. So literally 5 seconds in, hold 5, breathe out 5, hold 5. It's only, 4 breaths a minute if you do that? And it's amazing how calming that can be, even if your boss yells at you. And you can do this in meetings and no one knows you're doing it. All right. How are we doing on time? Is there one more? Do I need to finish? All right, we got last one. I said one more, but I was wrong.
Hi, Dave. My name is Galina. Question about water. Since there are so many contaminants in bottled water, tap water, what is the best way you found to make water that includes the minerals, the structure, the alkalinity, like all of it?
All right, here's what everyone should do this if you live in a house that's connected to a normal water supply. There's thyroid hormone, there's prescription drugs, there's all sorts of contaminants in water. You need a whole house charcoal block filter. It's going to run about $400. You need to change it every 3 to 6 months, depending on where you live. You probably want a whole house ceramic filter. You can install these yourself. They're not that hard to do. And the ceramic filter is going to block viruses and small contaminants. You're going to get most of the things out of your water, and you will live longer if you do this. When they added chlorine to tap water, they calculated the number of cancer deaths they were going to cause, and there is a number. But they're like, this number is way lower than the number of deaths from bacteria and parasites, so it's a good trade-off. But I don't know about you guys. I don't want cancer or bacteria and parasites, so I'm going to add a filter. It's not that hard. So you do this for your whole house. And then on top of that, an RO unit, reverse osmosis, that you use for your drinking water is a really good idea. And then there's a whole bunch of different technologies for making structured water. And if you listen to the interview on Bulletproof Radio with Gerald Pollack, we talk about there's things with magnets, there's things with light, there's vortex makers, there's alkaline things that use electricity, there's hydrogen water makers. I would say the jury's out on exactly which one of those to do. I know you want to get exclusions on water, but we think 1200 nanometer light will do that. There's various devices that have some type of evidence behind them or not, but I'm not ready to say this is the one to use. But I can tell you, play around. When you drink water that's been treated right, it actually feels different. Like you drink that, like, what was that? That was really good. You should have that feeling from your water and talk about what works, because I don't think that there's enough science to tell you that one. And on that note, thank you all for listening. Come by the booth.
For more information, go to www.thebestyou.co.